Anjali wanted to impress her wealthy date, so she chose the most expensive restaurant in the city. When their waiter moved a bit too slowly, she didn't just complain. Ayla insulted his intelligence and called him a servant who would never amount to anything. She thought she was showing her power. She had no idea that the man she just humiliated held the keys to her family's entire future in his hands. 1 hour later, the slow waiter would walk into her father's boardroom and change her life forever. This story is a powerful reminder that the way you treat those below you reveals exactly who you are. Before we reveal the shocking truth, tell me, what city are you watching from? Write it in the comments. And if you believe in the power of humility, subscribe to Wise Guru Tales right now. Let's begin. The evening began with a kind of oppressive luxury that only the ultra-wealthy of Mumbai truly understand. Ajay Malhotra stood before a floor-to-ceiling mahogany mirror, meticulously adjusting the folds of her hand-woven, trilary designer silk sari. Every thread of the gold zari work seemed to catch the light, reflecting her status as a daughter of one of the city's most feared real estate moguls. Tonight wasn't just a dinner, it was a calculated performance. She was meeting Rahul, the heir to a global shipping empire. Her father had made it clear. This alliance was the only bridge left to save their family's crumbling reputation after a series of bad investments. Anjali didn't just want to impress Rahul. She wanted to dominate the room, to show everyone that the Malhotras were still at the top of the food chain. They arrived at the Gilded Leaf, a restaurant so exclusive that its address wasn't even listed on a public map. The air inside was thick with the scent of expensive Audi and fresh lilies. The walls were adorned with real gold leaf, and the tinkling of crystal glasses provided a rhythmic backdrop to the harsh conversations of Delhi's elite. As they were seated at the best table in the house, reserved months in advance, a young waiter named Karan approached. He was quiet. His movements were precise, but there was a certain slowness to his pace, a deliberate calm that Anjay mistook for incompetence. The friction began almost immediately. When Karan arrived to pour the sparkling water, he placed the glass slightly to the left of where Anjali preferred. It was a microscopic error, something most people wouldn't even notice. But for Anjali, looking for a way to assert her high standards in front of Rahul, it was an invitation for cruelty. "Are you blind? Or did you just buy your way into this uniform?" she snapped, her voice cutting through the ambient music like a blade. Karan paused, his face remaining remarkably composed, almost stoic. "I apologize, ma'am. I'll correct it immediately," he replied in a voice that was soft but firm. Her irritation only grew as the night progressed. When the bread basket was served a few minutes too late, in her estimation, she didn't just complain. She made it a spectacle. She began to lecture Karan in front of the entire dining room about the natural order of society. "You see, Rahul," she said, leaning back and looking at Karan with absolute disdain, "the problem with this country is that people like this think they can work at our pace. They are born to serve, but they lack the brain power to do it efficiently. Look at him. He looks like he's struggling to remember his own name." She turned her gaze back to Karan. "Don't let your mediocrity ruin my evening. Move faster, servant, or I will ensure your next job is cleaning the gutters where you belong." Rahul laughed, a shallow, syrupy sound that fueled Anjali's ego. Karan didn't argue. He didn't flinch. He simply fixed the table, bowed his head with a dignity that seemed to infuriate Anjali even more, and walked away. He didn't look like a man who had been defeated. He looked like a man who was observing a specimen under a microscope. Anjali felt a surge of triumph, convinced she had shown Rao that she was a woman of uncompromising standards. She had no idea that every word she spoke was a nail in the coffin of her family's future. Behind the heavy, double-swinging doors of the kitchen, the atmosphere was a world away from the gold-leaf dining room. Here, It was heat, steam, and the frantic clatter of pans. Karan walked to the back of the kitchen, removing his white waiter's jacket with a slow, rhythmic precision. He wasn't just a waiter, and he certainly wasn't slow because of a lack of intelligence. Karan was an honors graduate from one of the world's most prestigious business schools and a brilliant software architect who had secretly developed an AI-driven logistics platform that was currently the talk of the venture capital world. His presence at the Gilded Leaf was the result of a character test designed by his father, a legendary billionaire who believed that a true leader must first understand the weight of service. Before you inherit the boardroom, you must understand the floor. His father had told him, "Work as a waiter for 1 month. Do not reveal your name. Do not use your influence. Just observe." For 3 weeks, Karan had endured the long shifts, the sore feet, and the physical exhaustion. He had seen the quiet kindness of some and the staggering arrogance of others. But Anjali Malhotra was a different case entirely. As he stood in the locker room, Karan reflected on her words. "People like you are born to serve people like us." The irony was almost poetic. Karan's family actually owned the building the Malhotras lived in. His father's venture capital wing was the only entity capable of providing the capital the Malhotra Group desperately needed to avoid bankruptcy. Anjali's father had been begging for a meeting for months. Karan changed out of his waiter's apron and into a charcoal gray, bespoke Italian suit that had been waiting in his private locker. As he adjusted his silk tie and slipped on his Patek Philippe watch, the servant vanished. In his place stood a man who held the power to create or destroy empires. He checked his phone. A message from his father's secretary read, "The Malhotra Group delegation has arrived at the headquarters. They are desperate. Mr. Malhotra is waiting in the boardroom with his daughter. Are you ready to finalize the decision?" Karan looked at his reflection one last time. He wasn't angry about the insults. He was enlightened. He had seen the unfiltered Anjali Malhotra, the version of her that existed when she thought she was talking to someone who didn't matter. He realized that the standard she boasted about was nothing more than a mask for a deep-seated cruelty. He typed a quick response, "I'm on my way. I've seen enough to make the final call." He walked out the back entrance of the restaurant, where a black armored sedan was waiting, its engine idling silently. The transition from the invisible servant to the all-powerful investor was complete. At the Malhotra Group headquarters, the tension was so thick it was almost tangible. Anjali's father, Mr. Malhotra, was pacing the length of the boardroom, his hands shaking as he adjusted his cufflinks. This merger was his last stand. If the Apex Venture Group didn't sign the deal today, his banks would foreclose on his properties by the end of the week. "Anjali, make sure you are on your best behavior," he warned his daughter, who was sitting at the table, still basking in the glow of her successful date with Rahul. "The man who is coming today is the son of the founder. He is young, brilliant, and has total autonomy over this deal. If we impress him, we are saved." Anjali smiled, checking her makeup in her compact mirror. "Don't worry, Papa. I know exactly how to handle men like him. I've spent my whole life navigating high society. I'll make him feel like he's the most important person in the world." She was convinced that the same power moves she used at dinner would work here. She expected a young, pampered heir, someone she could charm or manipulate with her status and beauty. She had already prepared her speech about synergy and shared excellence. The heavy oak doors of the boardroom swung open. Mr. Malhotra stood up so quickly he almost knocked over his chair. "He's here. Mr. Karan, thank you so much for—" He stopped mid-sentence as he saw the young man walking toward the head of the table. Karan walked with a grace and authority that filled the entire room. He was followed by the senior legal advisors, but all eyes were on him. Anjali felt the air leave her lungs. Her compact mirror slipped from her hand, hitting the carpeted floor with a dull thud. Her brain struggled to process the image before her. The face was identical. The eyes, calm, penetrating, and intelligent, were the same eyes that had looked at her across the table at the Gilded Leaf. But the waiter's apron was gone, replaced by a suit that probably cost more than her car. The slow movement was now a calculated, powerful stride. "Papa, what is he doing here?" she whispered, her voice failing her. Mr. Malhotra looked at her, confused. "Anjali, show some respect. This is Karan, the director of Apex Venture. He is the one who will be deciding our future." Karan didn't sit down immediately. He stood at the head of the table, looking directly at Anjali. The silence lasted for what felt like an eternity. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, echoing the pounding of Anjali's heart. She felt a cold sweat breaking out on her forehead. The servant she had humiliated, the man she had called mediocre and blind, was now the person who held her family's life in his hands. Karan finally sat down, but he didn't open the folder of documents. Instead, he folded his hands on the table and looked at Mr. Malhotra. "Your daughter and I have already met, Mr. Malhotra. Just over an hour ago, in fact, at a restaurant called the Gilded Leaf." Mr. Malhotra's face lit up with a tragic, hopeful smile. "Oh, what a coincidence! Anjali, why didn't you tell me you knew Mr. Karan? I assume you had a wonderful conversation." "It was enlightening," Karan said, his voice cold as ice. He turned his gaze to Anjali, whose face was now a pale shade of gray. "Your daughter gave me a very thorough education on the natural order of things. She explained to me that people in service positions are born to be mediocre, and that kindness is a luxury they don't deserve. She even suggested that I belonged in the gutters." Mr. Malhotra's smile died instantly. He looked at his daughter, his eyes wide with horror. "Anjali, what did you say?" Anjali tried to speak, but her voice was a strangled rasp. "Papa, I didn't know. I thought he was just a waiter. It was a mistake." "That's precisely the problem. Anjali," Karan interrupted, his voice rising just enough to command the room. "You only treat people with dignity when you think they have something you want. You think status is something you wear, like that sari. But true status is how you treat the person who can do absolutely nothing for you. I spent a month in that restaurant to see who the real leaders in this city were. Today, you showed me that the Malhotra group is led by people who lack the most basic human quality, humility." Karan pushed the unsigned merger documents back across the table toward Mr. Malhotra. "I came here today ready to sign this deal. My team had already approved the numbers, but I cannot in good conscience partner with a family that views other human beings as scenery or servants. If this is how you treat a waiter, I can only imagine how you treat your junior employees, your contractors, and your smaller partners. Arrogance is a cancer in business, Mr. Malhotra. It leads to blind spots, and eventually it leads to ruin." Mr. Malhotra began to plead, his voice cracking with desperation. "Please, Mr. Karan, she's just young. She didn't mean it. We can make adjustments. We can offer better terms." But Karan was already standing up. "The deal is dead, Mr. Malhotra. And as for you, Anjali, you said I would never amount to anything. Today, that nothing just determined your entire future. I hope you enjoy your designer clothes while you still have them, because by next week, they might be all you have left." Karan walked out of the room without looking back. Anjali stood frozen as Rahul, who had been waiting in the lobby, saw the legal team leaving and realized the deal had failed. He didn't even come in to say goodbye. He simply turned and walked away, his interest in the Malta family vanishing along with their wealth. Anjali sat in the empty, silent boardroom, the gold leaf on the wall suddenly feeling like a cage. She had tried to prove she was above everyone else, only to find herself at the very bottom, ruined by the very arrogance she thought was her greatest strength.